Welcome to Gardens Oval in Darwin for the Teal Cup Grand Final between Victoria and South Australia. It's a fine, warm, dry season day in Darwin. Not a cloud in the sky and an estimated maximum temperature of around 30 degrees Celsius. Humidity probably somewhere around 25%, but there's a nice breeze blowing across the ground, and when you see the windsock later, you'll know that on the botanical sides of the ground, the breeze is coming directly across the ground, so there's neither end will be favoured, I would think. If you get just a slight whiff of money on your screen, that's because we're in close proximity to the new Mindle Beach Casino. Victoria won their way into this grand final, the Under-17 Australian Rules Championship of Australia, by defeating ACT last Friday and Western Australia in the main game on Saturday. It is interesting to reflect on that match as Victoria trailed by 6 goals at half-time after being totally outplayed by WA in the second term. However, Victoria's second half of powerhouse football was magnificent, and they eventually went on to record a comfortable victory. South Australia defeated New South Wales in their opening match last Friday and then had a 22-point victory over Queensland on Saturday. As the scores indicated, that was an excellent match, and the fact that Queensland only had 2 less scoring shots than South Australia was a fairly accurate reflection of the closeness of that tussle. South Australia were winners of the Teal Cup in the 3 years from 1978 to 1980, whilst Victoria have triumphed in the past 2 years. The Victorian side was also successful in 1976 and 1977. The umpires for today's match are Chris Mitchell from Victoria and Stuart Russell from South Australia. Each state supplies one of the 2 central umpires in Teal Cup competition. Also, during this year's Teal Cup series, there has been a special dispensation of 4 interchange players to give the southern lads a bit more opportunity in the hot conditions. And there's a free kick. Looks like a bit of a dispute over who was in the square and who wasn't, and this allows South Australia's Kitschke to kick the ball down looking for the centre half forward Argus, but he can't take the mark. South Australia finally get the ball out through Kidney. He goes for a hand pass, intercepted by Victorian defence, and doing well there for Victoria was number 18, Andrew North, and they allowed to clear the ball out onto the wing. Good duel out there on the wing between the 2 players. The South Australian ruckman intercepts, but this allows Victoria coming through very quickly, and a good hand pass across to John Fidge, who's playing a burster of a first term for Victoria. His kicks over the line, over the pack, and Stephen Hillam will relieve for South Australia. Shoots the ball quickly out looking for Jason Rowe, out on the half-back flank for South Australia, and Rowe has taken the mark, and now he's going to settle things down, doesn't know what to do with it. Finally goes for a hand pass out to the free-running back pocket player Baker. Baker's kick is a poor one. It's intercepted by the Victorian Darren Steele. He goes for a kick down there looking for a couple of teammates. They just mucked one another up, but the ball's come out cleverly to Jackson. He runs in a hand pass there to his teammate Hannah, and Hannah pops through the easiest of goals for number 2 to Victoria, and they're starting to get on top of those defence down there, Paddy, the South Australian defence.
Interesting to note, Murray, that in the game on Saturday, these 2 particular players, young Millum Hannah and Ricky Jackson, they had a lot to do with the revival of Victoria when they were under a bit of pressure there on Saturday. Already they're starting to exert their influence on the game. Again, young Hannah playing on a wing, and he's coming right down to the forward line, doing backing up and playing a great game. He's already got away to a great start.
Well, I didn't see the second half of Victoria's game against Western Australia, but I did see the first half, and if anyone had told me they were going to beat Western Australia at half-time, I wouldn't have believed them. But anyways, it's football, isn't it? As the ball is bounced in the centre of the ground, going for the knockout, South Australia was Jansen, but Victoria take the ball away, and there's a good, strong mark by Lockett at centre half forward for Victoria, playing in front where all forwards should always play. Lockhart's going for a torpedo punt kick. It didn't quite get away properly. Punched away by Hiskins. The ball comes out to the half-back line, but it's snapped up by Victorians' McCarty. He has a quick shot for goal, but it's gone out of bounds on the full, and this allows South Australia to relieve the pressure through the agencies of Kelly Brand. Brand started off the game on the half-back flank for South Australia, and he's not getting the kick. It must have been touched, and there's the throw-in. The 2 big ruckmen holding on to one another, no clear knockout. Ball comes out to Victorians' McCarty, and McCarty has hand passed looking for his teammate there in Jackson, and he's been given a free kick for a high tackle, and this looks like goal number 3. Paddy, I'd like to be betting on this one.
So he's got a good approach to the kick. There it is, straight through the middle.
Wobbly old kick, but it did the job.
As long as it goes through for 6 points, Murray. That gives young Jackson 2 goals now, and at the 10-minute mark of the first quarter, in this grand final of the 1983 Teal Cup, Victoria 3-3, South Australia 1 goal. Victoria using the win now to advantage. I thought in the first opening minutes of the game that they weren't going to use the win to advantage, but they've certainly started to make use of it now. Interesting, at the start of the game, their coach had a lot to say about the using the wind, and now they're using it, and it's to their advantage. The ball's bounced, the 2 ruckmen go up, it's nullified, down on the ground, tapped over the top by Victoria. Hannah's there, so is Fidge. He hand passes over to the running McCarty. He hand passes inboard to the forward pocket player, and Victorian player goes through, can't take it with him, and South Australia's in there, but he's outnumbered by Victoria as young Stuart McGuinness gets the ball and kicks it into the forward lines, and Hannah comes over the top and takes a great mark right in front, right on the 10-yard line, directly in front, and should be able to put this through with ease.
Where did Hannah start off the game, Paddy?
He started off on the wing, Murray, but I see at the centre bounce he's playing in the centre.
I'll tell you what, his marksmen want to start following him down that forward line, because he's starting to cut them to pieces down there, South Australia, and I think the runners will be out in the ground shortly to the South Australian wingman to watch this bloke, although he looks like he's roving on the ball.
Well, he started on the wing, and then at the centre, I noticed in that last centre bounce, he was in the centre, and one of the rovers was outside the square, so maybe they're using a ploy there of running a wingman into the centre to get the ball away and using the rover to run down the ground.
A little bit of pre-match tactics and strategy worked out by the Victorian coach Ray Jordan as the ball is bounced. Going high for South Australia was Jansen, gets the knock down looking for Anderson. Anderson can't get away, pretty high tackle, but play on, says the umpire, as the hand pass comes out to Victoria's Grant, who goes long, finds Rover there in the forward pocket, quick snap for goal, and I think he's banged it straight through. And McGuinness for Victoria, and Victoria starting to look $1 million at the moment in this first term. They're kicking with quite a strong breeze now as the wind has switched away. If we can get a shot of the wind socket, you'll probably see that the breeze is starting to blow quite strongly down to the high school ground, end of the ground, and whilst it's certainly cooling down conditions, it's making the game a little bit one-ended. But funny things happen with the wind up here, Paddy, at this time of the year. It mightn't stay like that for long.
That's for sure. Late in the afternoon, it's just liable to turn around and come straight in from the sea. About the 12-minute mark of this quarter, 5-3 Victoria, South Australia 1 as the ball comes down on the ground. Darren Steele picks it up. He gets a push in the back and will take a kick directly in the centre of the ground. And he's not going to waste his time. He's going to go long, looking for someone down there, the big...
great
forward
mark,
Chris Knight, but it's
Coles, a good mark.
Young Coles from South Australia took a relieving mark for South Australia. He's going over to the scoreboard side of the ground, finds his man over there. He hand passes over the top to the running Geneva. He kicks down long down to the forward line looking for Argus. Argus can't handle the ball. Now he breaks out of the pack with it, paddles it in front of him and gets pushed in the back, but no kick there, and it stacks on the middle, and the umpire says, leave it to me, fellas, and I'll bounce it up.
And the South Australian umpire, Stuart Russell, comes in to bounce the ball, and left half forward South Australia, who desperately need a goal. There goes the big men, but clear knock out there to the Victorian ruckman Johns, but beats all players out of bounds on the far side of the ground. On the Botanical Garden side of the ground, there's a throw in. Going high was the big ruckman Jansen for South Australia, but the ball's come into a pack of players, and finally the umpire has decided on a free kick. Umpire Russell awarding a kick there to the South Australian player Gregory Anderson. Oh, beautiful torpedo punt kick by Anderson, high into full forward. Big pack of players, and South Australia can't open up their forward line, and this allows the Victorian defence once again to relieve. Good kick out there looking for the Rover player Garland, but he can't handle the mark, and the ball goes out of bounds for another throw-in. Left half forward for South Australia, 12 minutes into the first term.
2 ruckmen, Johns and Jansen. Nobody gets a clear knock, but Victoria comes away from it, and the player gets a push in the back, and he will take a kick on the half-back line. Hand passes straight out to Garland, I think it is, running past. He kicks into the centre of the ground looking for Ross Lyons. He turns around, hand passes it straight to South Australia. He gives it to his captain in Geneva. He goes long down to the forward lines looking for the big men. They all fly up. It comes down on the ground with the South Australian and young Kidney fighting for the ball. And there's John Fidge. He hand passes over the top to Atkins for Victoria, and they're fighting on the half-back line for the ball, and the Ball is hand passed over the top. South Australia comes out with it. Ginniver, the captain, gets it for South Australia. Hand passes it into the open to the running half-forward flanker in Argus. He can't control it. Now he kicks it wildly, but Victoria, he forgets to take it with it. Jennifer comes through and puts it on the boot straight through. Beautiful play by the South Australian captain, young Tim Ginniver. Run through, picked up the loose ball and on the boot straight through the middle.
By G, Argus has got a bad case of dropsy for South Australia up in the forward line. He was in one of their key forwards throughout this carnival. And Victoria leading 5-3 to 2 goals 15 minutes into this first term. And I think, Paddy, that the tactics of kicking the ball straight down the centre into those big packs of players for South Australia isn't as effective perhaps as they had hoped, because the Victorian defence certainly is equal to the task of punching the ball away.
Well, South Australia in this competition, as the ball's bounced to ruckman, Jansen and Johns. It's tapped down on the ground. Ginniver's over it again, the South Australian captain. Hand passes out in the open looking for Jolly, and they find a kick to Victoria in young Garland, I think it is. Yes, Brad Garland kicks and finds the half-forward flanker by himself. He can't pick it up. He's got the fummels, but he goes for a bounce. Hand passes over the top, sends a telegram down to Lyons. Lyons turns around the Victorian half-forward, and he kicks it straight through the middle.
And that's the scoring place. That's the place to kick the goals from, Victoria, over on that scoreboard side of the ground.
Prior to the game, Murray, Ray Jordan did tell them, keep it over that side of the ground and kick it around that flank, and it's working, it's paying off.
Well, they've got the wind straight behind their back when they come into goals from there, Paddy.
At the 15-minute mark, Victoria 6-3, South Australia 2 goals, but Victoria are going with a fairly favourable breeze, probably 3 goals, maybe 4 goals in bursts. And they're using it to advantage now as the umpire prepares to bounce the ball at the centre. Opposing ruckman in. Victoria gets the bounce, big long one, 30-yard knock. Hannah's over it, he tries to take it with him, but South Australia grabbed the ball. It's hand passed to a teammate, gives him a hot bun, and now it's out in the open to the running Anderson. Anderson drops it onto the left boot, over the half-forward line, looking for the full forward. That's the centre half-forward, I think, is it?
That was Robert Jansen, it was. It took the mark by G. He got up in the air then. And Jansen is playing in what position? He's in the forward pocket ruckman, and that was a great mark. He has a shot for goal. The kick doesn't match the mark, Paddy, unfortunately, for South Australia, and it's offline for one behind. Oh, that was an excellent mark.
Great mark, and from behind, Murray was a good, well-judged mark. Still in all, the fella he was standing was a little bit shorter than him. As North, the Victorian ruckman, comes out to this side of the ground, but it's the big ruckman from South Australia, Kitschke, who takes a mark. Goes short, looking for the leading full forward, and found him. Put it right on his chest. If he'd opened his mouth, it would have choked him.
Not a bad pass from a ruckman. I haven't seen too many big blokes kick a ball like that for a while.
Roger Delaney, he's already got 1 goal on the board. Running in for his kick, left foot. Nice straight kick straight through the middle. The umpire doesn't move, and that takes South Australia on to 3 goals, 1. The score at the about the 17-minute mark of the first quarter. Victoria 8-3, South Australia 3-1. 8-3, 6-3, sorry.
Poor defence by the South Australian Rovers.
5-minute mark. Victoria 10-3, South Australia 5-1. Victoria kicking into the breeze and still scoring. And another infringement in the square by Victoria. This time a player got too anxious, over-anxious to get into the action, come into the square. Consequently, South Australia gets an infringement kick. There they go, long down into the forward lines. South Australian player waiting over the top, but once again Victoria and through the North, I think it is the Victorian fullback who came in and smothered the ball, and the umpire says, leave it to me, I'll have a bounce of the ball. Nobody gets the ball, not a decisive knockdown, but Victoria picks it up and passes it over to Steele. He hand passes it back to the back pocket player. He hand passes back to Steele. He's got a hot cake, but they get out of it very nice through John Fidge. He kicks long down to the half-forward line. Victoria takes an easy mark through Lockett, Tony Lockett, the centre half-forward for Victoria, and he's going back to put it in long.
Used his body very well, Lockett, then.
Oh, South Australia stole that run through the agency of Steve Hillam. Great mark. Used his body well. Now he comes back over to the front of the Hunter Harrison stand, but it's Lockett again that takes the mark. Kick for kick there. No, the man in front's going to get it, the South Australian player. Coles. He's had a good game for South Australia. Oh, no direction much, putting it out in front, but the runner for Victoria through White. Kicks it along, but South Australia having a little bit of kick-to-kick here by the looks of it with the defence. As the... who's this fella? Coles for South Australia. Once again, gets his second kick in about 30 seconds. Goes long down onto the wing down here. Comes off hands again. Cleared by Victoria through Atkins. He kicks it down to the half-forward line. Now it comes through to Steele. Hand pass to Steal. He goes for the short pass to the man in front and puts it on his chest. Great play by Victoria. Gave it to Gary Robinson. Great pass by the Steal. He ran down the wing, took a hand pass, dropped it onto the boot. Beautiful low pass and put it on the forward's chest as he comes in now from about 30 yards out on a very acute angle, and he's given it too much, and it's gone through for one behind to Victoria. And at the 6-minute mark of the second quarter in the 1983 Teal Cup Grand Final, Victoria 10-4, South Australia 5-1.
And that's the corner of the ground, Paddy, that they wouldn't want to get the ball into too often, Victoria, because it's very difficult kicking goals from that pocket, kicking into a strong breeze from that pocket, and the angle quite acute. As the South Australian defender in Hiskins goes for a long kick straight down the ground, but it's intercepted once again by Steele from Victoria. Screws the ball back in looking for his full forward, who copped a little bit of high treatment, and the umpire spotted it, and the Victorian full forward is going to have another opportunity at goal, and this time a little bit better angle, and see whether Robinson can do something more with the ball than he did last time, although this is a much easier shot on the angle. There goes the kick, and he learned a little bit from the last kick because he's putting this straight through the middle. And that was a great kick by Robinson, and Victoria's 11th goal. They lead 11 goals for 90 to South Australia 5-1, and with South Australia kicking with the wind advantage in this term, Victoria have been the side that have taken the initiative, and if South Australia aren't able to do something about this, Paddy, they might well have truly lost this game before half-time.
Both the sorties in that particular episode were through young Steele, the wingman for no, he's not, he's the rover for Victoria. Running down, following the ball down, and a very accurate pass he is. Umpire from Victoria, Mitchell, bounces the ball. Nobody gets it, it just bounces back towards South Australia into the ground, but Fidge comes through, he gets a round the shoulder, hand passed over to Grant. Grant drops it to Hannah. Hannah kicks it in short, half-back flanker for Victoria, for South Australia. He intercepts. Got caught almost for holding the ball there, but South Australia once again comes out of it, drops it onto the left boot and goes across goals looking for the half-back flanker in Rowe, Jason Rowe, but he gets bustled out of it by the Victorian in Steele. And the umpire has seen a penalty to South Australia. They play straight on with it, comes down to Fidge, punched down to young Jarman. He kicks it to the half-forward line, but it's Victoria once again with ease, clears it out of the back lines. McCartney kicks in long to the forward pocket. 3 Victorian players down there, punched away by the South Australian defence with Hannah running into the ball. He's over it, goes to hand pass, gets grabbed. Now he's back over it again. Good recovery by Hannah, and he gives it to McCartney, who just pops it straight through with consummate ease.
And Victoria
doing it on the bit, Murray.
Asserting their superiority. I think South Australia are far too slow in defence. They certainly don't have the endeavour of the Victorians. And if they're trying to pace themselves, they certainly want to get a move on, because hot weather or not, they now trail Victoria, who are 12 goals for, and that should be 76 if my arithmetic's right. It is. And South Australia 5-1-31. And already Victorian starting to take a stranglehold on this game as the umpire Stuart Russell from South Australia comes in and bounces the ball. A good clear knockout there to Jansen, but the ball is easily bustled up by the Victorian defender who's on the ground. And it's interesting, Paddy, every time there's a ball up, you find a Victorian at the bottom of the pack. On that occasion, young Grant was on the bottom of the pack. Probably hungrier for the ball. They like the smell of leather and liniment and want it more than South Australia as the ball's bounced. Victorian player gets it, he brings it down the ground, but it's sharked by South Australia. Hand passed over the top to Walters. He tries to go for a hand pass, but it gets intercepted by Jarman, the South Australian Deputy Vice Captain. Balks around his back, drops it onto the boot and straight through. Yes, that brings up South Australia's 6th goal with a great running balk by the South Australian player in Andrew Jarman, the Deputy Vice Captain. Certainly a talented player, young Jarman, but yes. Worries me a little bit, Paddy. He's got a turn of speed, but he doesn't very often use it. He seems to probably used to playing against players not quite as good as him, maybe, but not quite as fast. Victoria at the 11-minute mark, 12-4-76 to South Australia, 6-1-37. South Australian umpire Stuart Russell bounces the ball. Ruckman come in. Got down by South Australia to Ginniver. Ginniver kicked it over the top, but once again, Victoria's defence is there, standing firm. Hand passes out to the back pocket player in, and there's a penalty down the ground. White it was. Going to White, David White. he was the kicker, but the player with the ball is Lockett, the big centre-half forward, Paddy. Lockett, certainly probably the biggest player on the ground,
extra well.
using his bulk very, very well. Coles at centre-half back for South Australia has played an outstanding game, as the big fella Lockett goes for the spiral torpedo punt kick, but he's kicked it out to the right. It was a beautifully executed kick. It wasn't lined up quite as well as he would have liked, and one minor score to Victoria, taking them to 12-6, leading South Australia 6-1, as the South Australian fullback in Hiskins kicked the ball in well all day, and this occasion's no different. He finds Anderson on right half-back flank. Anderson running on the ball for South Australia. Good left foot kick up into the centre of the ground. Going high there was the South Australian Jansen. Couldn't take the ball. This allows South Australia to come through again through the agency of Ginniver back on the ground, and he's pushed in the back, and the captain of South Australia, young Timothy Ginniver, is going to have the kick. There goes his kick up in the air, looking for the tall marking full forward, but this time the Victorians are equal to the challenge. Oh, poor hand pass, put his teammate into plenty of trouble. South Australia knocked the ball out on the ground, and that's equally disappointing. And a poor tackle there by the South Australian Jolly gives Victoria the chance to ease the pressure.
Played quite well in the back pocket, this Mike Atkins, Murray.
Oh, good footballer. Kicks long, but the man in front for South Australia is Jolly. He played in front of his man Teal, and in this grade of football, Paddy, the front man's got an enormous advantage, hasn't he?
My word. There goes his kick into the forward lines again, looking for the big ruckman, but once again it comes down on the ground. But Paisley, the South Australian, tries to hand pass it, but it stacks on the mill. Once again, Victoria locks it up, and the umpire, Stuart Russell from South Australia, will bounce the ball. The ruckman come in. Here's South Australia's chance to score as they get the ball down on the ground. And it's South Australian over the ball, grabbed by Victoria through Dan Bowler, and it's holding the ball.
Kidney far too slow to make an attempt to get the ball out in the open then, and he banged his hand on the ground as much as he liked, Paddy, but he was clearly in the wrong.
Wrong player took the kick. Victoria clears once again, straight down the centre, going towards the centre of the ground. South Australia gets the ball down onto the ground, but it's Lyons gets it behind him to Teal. Teal runs in looking for his forward. He's found him, I think. No, the South Australian got the ball down to the ground, but now it's that full forward, turns around, dodges, ducks and weaves Robinson, and puts it through for his second goal for the match. Great recovery and rebound by the player. Showed a bit of turn of talent for a fairly big man, Murray.
Well, the ruckman for South Australia was in the box seat, and he was unable to recover. He hit the ground and he stayed there, whilst the Victorian Robinson hit the ground and bounced up. And 13-5 Victoria now in 15 minutes into the second term, and the game in a little bit of danger, Paddy, turning into a one-horse race unless South Australia can do something to tighten up that defence, because they're far too lax across the centre line and the Victorians running through the ground too easily. There's another centre line infringement.
South Australia this time, Murray. The wingman ran in too soon, too anxious to get into the action.
I think that's about five times, Paddy.
Big ruckman in Chris Johns takes the kick at the centre. There he goes long, down between, just past half forward. Oh, the big Victorian player nearly took the mark, but has came out with the South Australian defence through the back pocket player. He kicks it into down to the wing position where there's three Victorians, but yes, the umpire's seen a penalty, and it'll go to the Victorian half-back flanker.
White.
For a push in the back. There he goes. He's bringing the South Australian player in, and McCarty kicks it in long and finds the forward pocket player. He McGuinness hand passes over to Teal, and he straight into the waiting arms of the forward there, the Victorian forward, directly in front. And once again, it's that Gary Robinson becoming a thorn in the side for South Australia. They're going to have to get someone to stay alongside him or in front of him. Runs in, and there it is, straight through the middle, and that gives young Gary Robinson his fourth goal, I think it is, Murray, at the just after the 15-minute mark of the second quarter. South Australia 6-1-37, Victoria 14-5, makes them 89, I think it is.
He goes the bounce down, and Hitchke for South Australia gets the knock that goes straight down the throat of Fidge for Victoria. And have a look at that for a kick. A beautiful torpedo punt kick, lands in the goal square, scooped up by the Victorian rover in McGuinness, but his hurried kick hits the post. One behind to Victoria, and interesting that the South Australian West, in the last goal that Victoria scored, tried to knocked the ball over into through the point post and missed it completely and allowed the goals. The ball comes to South Australian back pocket player. She goes for a short pass, but it's poorly directed, and this allows Teal, the Victorian wingman, and has a great game. Teal shoots the ball in board, but coming out is the South Australian fullback in Hiskins. Kicked the ball well all day. Hiskins goes for a short pass out to his captain in Ginniver on the half-back flank. Ginniver's hand pass goes over towards looking for Botka, is it? Botka goes for the long kick in towards centre-half forward. Oh, great mark for South Australian Delaney.
That was a ripper.
Can't he mark the ball? And hand pass quickly off hands, a bit of shepherding in the goal square, and the umpire says, OK, thank you very much. And it's a goal, and a much-needed one to South Australia. And what a magnificent mark to Roger Delaney. Wish we had some instant replays for tonight, Paddy. There's been some superb marking in this game from both sides, but I suppose Anthony Coles, the South Australian, in the first quarter and a half until he tired, took some screamers. The Victorian player in Lyon, he took a couple of great marks in the second term, but I don't suppose there's a better mark on the ground than Delaney from South Australia. He certainly can get up in the air and take a big grab.
That was good play on football. They give it to young Tony Bessley, running, saw the opportunity there and dropped it onto the boot. But good shepherding in the forward lines. And there's another infringement at the centre bounce. And it goes to South Australia.
That's been happening all day. Unbelievable.
Must have happened 8 or 9 times as the big ruckman in Kitchke kicks it down to the half-forward line. But the player in Brent Walters for Victoria takes a mark and clears the ball, gives it to Atkins, the back pocket player. He kicks it long and gets it almost up to the Victorian half-forward line. Now the ball's picked up by Lockett, it is, the centre half-forward. He kicks mid-air as he gets pushed off the ball. He's still battling and running down ground and losing ground as he hand passes over to a teammate. He can't control the ball in McGuinness. It's picked up by South Australia. Now everybody's in on the act. There's David Grant for Victoria gets the ball, but it's intercepted by South Australia and goes down to the half-forward line where Victoria once again wraps it up and keeps it down on the ground where they can either get a bounce up so they can control the ball once again. As Chris Johns, the Victorian ruckman, in opposition to Damien Kitchke. Kitchke comes over the top down onto the ground and it stacks on the mill again as Victoria tries hard to get it out through Atkins. And the umpire says you were holding the ball, Michael Atkins, for Victoria, and it's a free kick to South Australia as Kitchke kicks it over the top and finds a South Australian player all by himself between half-forward and the forward pocket on an acute angle with the wind coming across his left shoulder, and it makes it a very difficult shot.
Tricky breeze, Paddy, at the moment, this time of day in Darwin. His kick's going to fall short, punched away by Victoria, but snapped up by Pays, who shown his quickest reflexes for the game. He didn't have a very good start to the game, was coming good in the second term towards half-time, and he'll certainly give him a little bit of confidence. That goal to Andrew Pays for South Australia. He's the West Torrens player, I'm told. He comes from the West Torrens club in Adelaide, and all of these South Australian boys
just had a change, Murray. It looks like the ruckman in Kitchke's come off and Gary Argus has gone on.
Well, Argus was my tip to be the danger man for Victoria, but he had a horror start to the game as the ball is bounced in the centre. It's won by South Australia. Going through the centre is Ginniver, but he's intercepted well by the Victorian Fidge, and Fidge is going to get a free kick from umpire Mitchell, and he's going to relieve the pressure.
Had a great game as John Fidge, Murray.
Oh, had a heap of kicks, hasn't he? There goes his kick down a centre-half forward. No one can mark it. They all misjudged it. And finally, the Victorian Jackson knocks it out, looking for that man, Hannah. And hasn't he made a recovery? I thought he was knocked out and be in hospital by now, Paddy. But he's back on the ground, ton of courage, stacks on the mill, and I reckon there'll be a ball up here. And when Hannah went off just before half-time, we thought we'd seen the last of him.
My word, so did I. He took a hard knock, but he's come back breathing fire.
Tough boy.
Chris Johns gets the ball down onto the ground. The South Australian players grab when he hasn't got the ball, but it's no free kick as the Ginniver, the South Australian captain's over the ball, but the umpire says, give it to me, fellas, and I'll bounce it up. And it's only about 25 yards out from the Victorian goal. They go. Victorian ruckman gets it down. He's ridden into the ground. So is Hannah. No, it's not. It's the Young Lions, I think it is. And he's been given a free kick directly in front.
And Ginniver not too pleased with that decision, but
I don't think I would be either.
It's not going to change.
It's Stewie McGuinness, one of the Rovers for Victoria. He's only about 20 yards out, directly in front with a breeze coming over his shoulder. There goes his kick. Nobody moves. Straight through the middle.
Didn't look so good off the boot, but the direction was there, and that's what counts. Victoria 19 goals 10, 124, leading South Australia 10-1, 61, and maybe the South Australian advance has been halted because they've certainly looked a better side since half-time, but that's a very big lead that Victoria have, and well-earned one because they completely outplayed South Australia in the first half of this Teal Cup Grand Final being played at Gardens Oval in Darwin for the first time ever. And the umpire from Victoria, Chris Mitchell, about to start proceedings in the centre of the ground. There goes the big ruckman there for South Australia in Delaney, but the ball goes to Victoria's way, but it's marked in defence by Craig Hiskins, who looks like he's been moved up to centre half back for South Australia. Ball off hands, big pack of players. This gives the run of the ball to the South Australian Wayne Marnie. Very cleverly taps the ball on to his vice captain in Gregory Anderson. Big kick up there looking for his full forward in Gary
Great
Argus.
mark.
But the Victorian defence stands firm, playing in front as they've been all day. There goes a left foot kick. It's gone wide of the three desperate South Australian players, giving the run of the ball to Johns. He's had a great game for Victoria, and he's also got a free kick, and one that isn't well received by some sections of the crowd, but John's got the ball. There goes his kick. He's miskicked it, but it's going to be okay, is it, as Jackson recovers for Victoria, can't take the ball. Hand pass by McKinnott over to his teammate. And Hannah has snapped a goal from the pocket. And can this boy play football, or can this boy play football?
Gives him 3 goals for the game, and he was off for almost a quarter. And at the 10-minute mark of the third quarter, South Australia 10 goals, 161 to Victoria. Takes them into double figures, I think. 20 goals, 10, 130.
This time Johns goes the other way and goes forward with a big knockout, but I think the South Australian Jason Rose in the van, but he can't pick the ball up. Anderson's picked it up for him and kicks a good left foot kick right up towards centre half forward, looking for Delaney. Couldn't take the mark, but the ball comes out through South Australia's Thompson. Goes in left foot, looking for his full forward up there in Argus, but what a horror day the fellas had, Argus. He's
just drifted away from him as he got his hands to it.
And another little stoush down here in front of our broadcasting position.
A little
Looks
bit
like
of extra entertainment.
Roger Delaney and the Victorian Atkins not too pleased with one another. I hope they have a drink after the game. There's not much point in discussions at this stage of the game when you're losing by 9 goals. But South Australia, to their credit, fighting on. Here goes the throw in. Argus gets the front position for South Australia. The ball comes down to his teammate in Kemp. He weaves and turns, but this time it's Ginniver who tries to do the right thing by his side, but he just can't quite control the ball, and it beats him out of bounds. Left ball forward for South Australia. There goes the throw once again. 3 ruckmen trying to contest against the Victorian, but that shot there by Kemp has gone off the side of the boot once again, and Paddy, I suppose that they were kicking beautifully all through the game until I'd said that they hadn't tired, and I no sooner said it. And
I see Victoria's put Andy North back at full back, Murray.
Yeah, well,
might see a long kick out this time as North comes in. Leads going from several places. He's going to go straight down the centre. No, he doesn't. It brings it back over here looking for the big ruckman in Johns. Johns is under it, but it comes offhand South Australia, and Robin Kidney passes in, finds Argus this time, right in front of goals, about 15 yards out, directly in front, and at last this player has eventually held on to a mark.
And just goes to show you, Paddy, the advantage of playing in front.
Yep.
South Australia been behind their men most of the game, and when you're in front, you're always a chance for the missed kick, and Argus finally has started to redeem himself. As I said earlier, he's a very good footballer, and he's had a day he'd like to forget, but to his credit, he's keeping on battling on, and he's kicked a couple, hasn't he?
Yeah, he's kicked 2 at the 17-minute mark of the grand final. In the last quarter here, Victoria 23 goals, 12, 150. South Australia looking a lot better now, 15 goals, 11, 101, and they're only 8 goals, 1 behind, and could, the way they're going with the endeavour they've put in the game, could kick a couple more goals as they come in. Lockett gets the bounce down, and South Australian player gets a push in the back, tries to get it out to Ginniver, but once again it's that Steele, the man of steel, is over the ball. He gets it out, and it's picked up by McCartney. He hand passes out to his teammate in McInnes, and it stacks on the mill, and the umpire says, "Give it to me, fellas, I'll have a kick." Nobody else wants to do anything with it, and the umpire, Victorian umpire Chris Mitchell, will bounce the ball back in almost in the centre of the ground.
Victorian boys looking very tired at this stage of the game now. As South Australia go for the ball, but another big knockout by Johns, who's been a dominant ruckman for Victoria. Ball comes to that man Hannah, has all the time in the world, gets onto his right foot and looks for his forward players up there, but it beats everybody and the ball comes out to South Australian defence. Missed kick, but paddle on it, a decent old push in the back, thank you very much. And then another one to go on with after it, and the free kick, 2 of them, going to Kelly Brand. We only get 1 of them, of course. And Brand, plenty of time to go for that long, high drop punt up the centre of the ground, going high with all the pack, but no one judged the ball well enough. The ball comes to Ginniver. What a great little footballer he is. Shoots the ball up, and there goes Argus, playing in front, and has taken his second mark in as many minutes. Well,
Can he do it, Murray?
He's got the ability, this boy. He played some great games during the carnival.
There it goes.
Straight through the middle.
Gives him 3 goals, Murray.
I tipped him in the first half of this game to be the player that South Australia would be looking for, and he just had one of those days, I think, but he's come good. And South Australia, that's reflecting on the scoreboard for them, because they now move along to 16 goals 11, and that should be 107. Trailing Victoria 23-12, 150, and we go into the 20-minute mark of the final term. Grand final 1983 Teal Cup in Darwin.
Interesting to note, Murray, that Victoria hasn't kicked a goal this quarter. They've only kicked 1 point, whereas South Australia has added on 5 goals, 7 in the quarter. So they've had a good quarter. Should have played more of them, as the little player and Brett Garland from Victoria tries to get the ball in the half-forward flank, but South Australia once again tighten up in their defence, and they come out with the ball as Marnie gets the ball, tries to hand pass over. Now the loose ball's picked up by Victoria, dodged around by the big fella Gary Robinson. He goes in left-footed, wild kick goes straight to the South Australian player, but now Victoria gets a push in the back. Robinson gets a push in the back following a kick through, and he is within scoring distance from where he is between half forward and the forward pocket, but on a fairly acute angle. Can he do it? He has already kicked 5 goals for the game. Had a great game as this fella started at full forward, moved out to centre half forward. Now he's coming in for his 6th goal if he can do it. And what happened there? Both run at one another. No one knew where the mark was, and neither did the umpire.
Bit of an argument.
The umpire's coming in now. He's going to do something about it now. There's the mark. Right, now we all know.
Bit of paper.
Yeah, let's get on with the game as Robinson comes in, lines it up, kicks on its way, drifting away, and it's gone out of bounds. No, it hasn't. It's only 1 behind to Gary Robinson, and at the 21-minute mark of the final quarter, Victoria have got this Teal Cup championship all wrapped up, 23-13 to 16-11. Kicks it to himself, does the South Australian fullback Hiskin. Goes for a run, has a couple of bounces, now kicks it long down, and that's where you want it, down to the centre of the ground. And Anderson picks it up, takes it off the pack and punches it straight up in the air. Now he keeps it in front of him. Shepherd off for him, somebody. There he goes. They've given him a bit of room. Drops it onto his left foot, does Anderson, the vice-captain for South Australia, and finds the big ruckman. No, he doesn't. It's down on the ground, and it's gone out of bounds and will be thrown in the forward pocket as the South Australian player attempts to put it over the umpires and have a shot for goals. But the umpires say, no, bring it back here, fellas, and we'll throw it in, as they have a little bit of a jostling match, and the umpires in the middle of it there. Just as well these umpires are cool, calm and collected. It must be tempting sometimes, some of the things that must be said to them out on the ground.
Well, Dunlop and Delaney certainly not the best of mates out in the ground at the moment, and be interesting. There's a bounce down here. They're both going to go for the throw-in, and goes to the fellow in front, Dunlop. Gets the tap down to Victoria's roving division, but over the top goes South Australia, right over the top of Lovett, and he'll get the free kick. Got a heavily bandaged left thigh there from half-time, but it hasn't seemed to inconvenience him. Goes up looking for the centre of the ground. Punched away well by Hiskins from South Australia. Been moved out to centre half-back. Going high there was Argus for South Australia. Couldn't hang on to it. Had his head pulled off. Here's Grant from Victoria. Now there's another bubble, and this one's going to be a good one. There goes punches right, left and centre. And what a shame that the game's going to be spoiled at this stage of the game by fisticuffs and nonsense, because there's no need for it.
Almost stretched that bloke's neck a foot, Murray. You'd think he was a draft. It was an accidental, really. The player in desperation threw his hand out and hooked it under the fella's chin, and then everybody got a little bit, what do they call it? I think aggro, isn't it, about it? And,
well, the time for South Australia got aggro and played hard was in the first half, but they were meek and mild and paid the penalty, and it's a bit late now for the aggression to come out of the ground. But Victoria certainly showing no signs of taking a backward step if it does come to that stage, so bit of a standoff at the moment, Paddy.
Yes, as the umpire gives a 15-30 yard penalty at the same time.
Well,
long
break
15
up the pack
yards,
a little bit and get away from those big blokes.
By some of these fellas, a tape measure, I think, as there goes the kick by Victoria, but goes straight to a South Australian player, and he gets pushed in the back, but hand passes it over to Bessel, the South Australian player, and Bessel plays on and kicks it in, and Mike Atkins, the back pocket player for Victoria, once again saves the day, and what a great game he's played today for Victoria as this fella. Out he comes to this side of the ground on the the Victorian ruckman didn't even go for the ball as Kidney comes out, hand passes over to Bessel once again. He has a shot and he's put it through. Great stuff, South Australia. Good play by the little fella, Bessel. Steadied himself, bang, straight through.
Well, and this was the sort of...
At the 24-minute mark of the final quarter of this 1983 Teal Cup, Victoria 23-13, 151, and they've only kicked 1 point for the quarter. South Australia 17-11, I think it's about 113, and they have added 8 goals, 7 to their score in the last quarter.
And this, is, of course, Paddy, is what we expected of South Australia in the second term when they had their turn with the breeze to the scoring end, and, of course, Victoria killed them. And it's interesting to see that South Australia at last taking a little bit of advantage of the breeze as they go forward. Victoria punched away by South Australian defence, now playing on their men. Too slow, the South Australian. Hannah drops the ball, then he gets held, and the umpire pays the hold. Oh, bit lucky, Hannah. But he's had a great game for Victoria, this boy. He killed South Australia in the first half. Been knocked out once, taken from the ground, and came back with great courage and played a good second half again. There goes the attempt at mark by South Australia, punched by his own teammate, but finally recovered once again very cleverly by the South Australian boy. And now the ball's come out to Rowe, it is, from South Australia, who's showed plenty of spirit. Ball comes loose out to Lyon for Victoria, and he's one of the best players on the ground. Tries a little screw kick and probably kicked it out deliberately, but the umpire, South Australian umpire Stuart Russell, said that's okay, and we'll have a throw in left half forward for South Australia, who looking for their 18th goal. There goes the throw down. The ball comes straight to South Australia's Thompson. Thompson kicks the ball up, and Argus has taken another mark. And what a shame he's come good late in the game, Paddy, because they wanted him in the first half and they took him off the ground.
They're going to run out of time, Murray. I'd say when this ball's kicked and relayed back, they'd blow the siren. Just about there it goes.
And Argus kicks the last goal of the game.
Victoria running out the winners in this carnival with 1983 Teal Cup played here in Darwin at Gardens Oval. The final score, Victoria 23 goals 13, 151 to South Australia 18 goals 11, 100, and I think it's about 123 would be the score. And once again, Victoria proving too strong. They've won it 3 years in a row now. And going through goal scorers for the game, first of all, South Australia, Gary Argus 4, Roger Delaney 4, 2 each to Tim Ginniver and Bob Jansen and Tony Bessel, and a string of 1 goals to Jarman, Kidney, Pays, Thompson for Victoria. Goal kickers for Victoria. First of all, Gary Robinson. He's kicked 5, 3 each to Millum Hannah. He only played for 2.5 quarters and got knocked out, and what a great game he played. Peter McCartney 3, Stuart McInnes 3, Tony Lockett 3, 2 to Ricky Jackson, and 1 each to Brad Garland, Ross Lyon, Chris Knight. Best players, Murray, for the game.
Well, for mine, I thought Steele for Victoria had a great game on the wing. I thought Lyon was a very good player. They had good ruckman. Dunlop, Lockett was a strong player. Oh, they had good players all over the ground. Victoria, I suppose you could make a case for most of their side. Hannah, as we said, had played a great game for them. And for South Australia, I don't think they had a better player than their 2 little blokes, Ginniver and Anderson. Jarman also played well. The big ruckman Delaney kicked 4 goals. He also played extra well. And I suppose that was about all we could say. Victoria jumped South Australia and hung on to win in a great game of football, exhibition of football by the Victorians, and they thoroughly deserved their win.